got true crime for any time. You done it.
Welcome to Reaganland. Rick Perlstein drops by to talk about his new book, Reaganland, and how the entire conservative movement all the way back to the 1960s has always been a scam. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. You will recall, day before yesterday, I did a rant and also published an op-ed over at commondreams.org about how the Republican Party, basically arguably since the 70s, certainly since 1980, has been one long grift, basically a con job that, when Republicans and conservatives talk about individual responsibility, what they're basically saying is that, minorities haven't succeeded because they failed to take individual responsibility. Let's ignore structural racism. When they talk about small government, what they're really saying is government is the only force, literally the only force that can protect communities from polluting corporations or giant banks that want to rip people off. And of course, they don't want people to be protected from that. And, that these code words basically are just a scam. It's fascinating to watch that. I've been watching this my whole entire life. And now Rick Perlstein comes along. He's got a new book out. He's the former chief national correspondent for the Village Voice, former columnist with the New Republic and Rolling Stone, journalist and contributing writer with The Nation. His latest, he's got this series of books, Nixon Land before this, and there was another one before that, and it's called Reaganland, America's Right Turn, 1976 through 1980. It is a doorstop. It's a massive book, but it is absolutely brilliant. Rick Perlstein, welcome to the program. So glad to have you back with us.
Oh, it's so great.
You gotta lose this guy.
Who is it?
Doesn't matter. He'll kill both of us.
Professor Richard Wolff says that the kind of bubble we're in right now in the stock market, these bubbles always burst. Get ready. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Tom Harbin here with you. On the line with us is Professor Richard Wolff, the economist, co-founder of Democracy at Work, author of numerous books. His most recent, Understanding Socialism, democracyatwork.info, and rdwolf with 2fs.com are his websites. You can tweet him at Prof. Wolf with 2fs. And Professor Wolff, welcome back. I shared with you this Bloomberg article about China's banking watchdog warning the Fed basically about what's up, and the Fed has created $7 trillion out of thin air. There was a piece yesterday or the day before in the Financial Times wondering out loud what will happen to America if our dollar dominance around the world, if the dollar ceases to be the world's reserve currency. How much inflation could that cause in this country? What's going on here? What is up with all this?
Well, I think you see a number of signs. First, I'm a little amused, as I know readers around the world are, to have the Chinese weighing in now that they are a monster economy really contending with the United States for dominance. They're going to comment on our central bank's behavior. Their comment is shared by others. It's not that the comment is out of order. It's just another sign that the United States' footprint in the world economy is shrinking and that of China is growing, and there are hundreds of those signs, but this is another one. The concern of the Chinese central bank and of the Chinese finance ministry is shared by the rest of the world. The United States has both the benefits, and they're enormous, and some of the burdens of being the world's currency. Right now, the Federal Reserve is so desperate about the conditions of the American capitalist system that, as you noted, they have been pumping up the money supply by the trillions. They already did that once before in the 2008 crash, so this is a huge extra on top of an already swollen money supply. And the great anxiety when you print money like this is that it will start to chase goods and services, and then you get that inflation, and nobody knows quite how bad that might be or how soon it'll come or what its damages might be. You can already see it because a good bit of that money has all flown into the stock market, where you have an inflation, where you have seen spectacular doubling or tripling of the prices of all kinds of stocks from their low in March to where they are right now. So you can see the money flowing in. You can see how the bidding up of prices is going. And so you can only sit and shiver and wonder to yourself, what happens if and when that money, facing the possibility of a burst stock market bubble, might start looking for other things to be spending on, and then the price of everything else will go crazy, and the difficulties we have now in our economy will be compounded.
So what does the average American do about this? I subscribe to this newsletter, the Aiden Forecast. We've had Pamela and Marianne Aiden, who publish it on this show before. It's basically for retail investors. And a couple of weeks ago, they came out with a newsletter saying that, it looks like the Trump administration is trying to drive down the value of the dollar. And the Chinese are involved in all this, basically. And so move your money out of dollars and buy euros right now. The stock market's a crazy place to put your money. The bond market has fallen apart, but you can buy, ETFs for euros or Australian dollars or Canadian dollars because, Trump has set the dollar up for a fall, basically. Is that, how do we get ready for something like that? I remember the really, really high inflation rates in the 1970s. I bought a house once. I think it was a 13% mortgage on this house that Louise and I bought. Are we going back to that? How do people respond to this? How do we deal with it?
Well, I wish I could give you the kind of magic answer here, do this, that I know is in your mind and the minds of millions of other people. But I cannot. At least I can't do it honestly. There is no riskless asset. There never was. Even if you hold cash, if we have an inflation, the cash becomes less and less valuable as the prices of everything go up. So even something as simple as that. But I'm afraid this applies to the rest of the world's currencies also. They are in a different situation. They're not pumping up the money supply the way the United States is, but they're also in a different situation. The only safety that I can ever see in the instability of our capitalist system is the old rule of not putting all your eggs in one basket. Make very sure that if you have any assets that you have the ability to move around, make sure some of them are in the United States, make sure some of them are out. Make sure some of them are denominated in dollars. Make sure some of them are denominated in euros or Japanese yen or whatever else you have a belief in. Don't put it all in stocks. Don't put it all in bonds. Don't put it all in big companies. Don't put it all in medium or small. In other words, try to spread it out so that you do not get wiped out if one or another of these sectors is undone. And let me assure you that between the pandemic and the crash of capitalism around the world and the consolidation of Europe, which is not being reported but should be because they're getting their act together and they are a bigger economy taken together than the U.S. is, and the disputes between the United States and China, you have a set of possible variables that disrupt everything that make any commitment to one asset or one category of assets the most unwise way to invest your money.
Yeah. I wrote an op-ed a couple of weeks ago pointing out that Jerome Powell is not an economist. He's a bankster. In fact, he was a managing director at the Carlyle Group.
Right.
And that, he's printed $7 trillion in money and used a good chunk of it to buy corporate bonds and stocks, thus supporting the stock market. And speculating about, what happens if Trump gets his favorite meal, which is revenge, the day after Joe Biden is declared the winner of the election, whatever day that may be. Trump orders Powell to stop supporting the stock market. And, what might happen if Powell was to say, okay, that's it. We're not only going to stop buying stocks and bonds, we're going to sell the $6 or $7 trillion worth that we're holding right now, or whatever the amount is, a couple $1 trillion worth we're holding right now.
Well, let me tell you two things. One, I doubt Mr. Powell would such a thing, given who he is and how he has spent his life. He has more loyalty to the likes of Carlyle Group than to Mr. Trump, and that was always true, and that's true now, too. But I would actually point you in another direction. This is a stock market bubble. This is a pricing of stocks based on a flood of money. That means that everyone who's involved, these are the knowledgeable speculators, they know, too, that this kind of a bubble always ends badly, and usually in the same way. The bubble bursts. That's why